August 30th, 2005. I'm Ted Koppel, and this is Nightline. Tonight, what the city of New Orleans feared most may be coming to pass.
What I saw today is equivalent to what I saw flying over the tsunami in Indonesia.
The water is rising and rising fast, with nowhere for it to go.
I mean, everything is just flooded. Everything, the whole city, this is like a city under siege.
Many residents still desperate for rescue and relief.
Thumbs up from the rescue swimmer, and away she goes.
And in Mississippi, the death and destruction is worse than anyone imagined.
This barge came in, obviously the storm surge, possibly even just judging by the elevation line, slamming into this permanent structure on the shore, just absolutely taking the building out.
Tonight, Katrina, the day after. This is where our society shows itself at its best and at its worst. 1,000 individual acts of random kindness and courage and charity, filling in the gaps and chinks left by agencies that are simply overwhelmed. And at the same time, amid a crisis that seems to be growing rather than receding, widespread looting and stealing in the face of police and military simply preoccupied with saving lives. Scores of lives have already been lost. The counting of the dead will have to wait until buildings that are flattened or flooded can be properly examined. Tonight, there are serious questions as to whether a city can be saved. And not just any city, but our beloved New Orleans, where even the dead used to be accompanied to the grave by fine music, where indulgence was a civic gift to visitors from everywhere, where the annual proclamation to let the good times roll promised great jazz, great food, and all that went with it. All of that. Everything that New Orleans ever was in danger of drowning tonight. Two of the levees that held back the waters of Lake Pontchartrain have cracked. And as the water rises in the city, there are no immediate answers as to how and when it will be pumped out again, or what will remain when it is. Just before we lost all light in New Orleans this evening, we spoke to Jeffrey Kaufman, who's been covering that story for us for the last couple of days. Jeffrey, I have the sense, and you can tell us, I suppose, based on where you are, that we have gone yesterday, it was a disaster, to today, catastrophe.
You know, Ted, we always try to refrain from using hyperbole when we're standing in places like this, but this really does feel like something of epic biblical proportions. At this time last night, I was standing here on Canal Street and telling you that while Katrina had dealt a severe blow to New Orleans, it could recover. Well, I was standing on dry ground. Look around me. This is Canal Street now. There are 2-3 feet of water, and if we go down further, it's much deeper. And Ted, this is the shallow part of the city. 80% of New Orleans is now underwater.
Let's begin with that, Jeffrey, because when you talk about, and it's been said over and over and over again, but New Orleans is a bowl. How do they empty the bowl? Where do they empty the bowl? Can they empty the bowl?
Well, the first thing they have to do is stop that bowl from filling up. As you know, New Orleans sits several feet below sea level. What keeps the sea and Lake Pontchartrain to the north, the Mississippi River to the south, out of New Orleans is that elaborate system of levees that we've talked about so much these past days. In 2 places overnight, the levees were breached. One breach was 200 feet wide. And as you can imagine, the water has just been pouring in over those breaches, and that's what I'm standing in. This is water from Lake Pontchartrain, from the sea, from the Gulf, that is now in New Orleans. So before we even talk about emptying it, they've got to stop it from filling. You know, this morning I came out just after sunrise to see the water, and it was about 2 or 3 blocks away behind me. This is evening. It keeps going up. It's not clear right now. I was here an hour ago. It's not clear whether it's still going up. We'll have a better sense of that in the morning, but they are dropping tons and tons of sand from helicopters to try to stop these breaches, to try to fill them. To answer your question, how do they empty them? This city is said to have the most elaborate system of pumping stations in the world. The system has failed. Many of the pumps are not working. They died when the power went out. The backup generators did not work. They need to get those pumps operating. But to be honest, Ted, the volume of water in here, 20 feet deep in some neighborhoods, it's very hard to comprehend how they can get that out. And I think last night we were talking about the doomsday scenario, the nightmare scenario that at that point we thought New Orleans had missed. This notion of this bowl filling with water filled with a toxic stew of chemicals, sewage, dead animals, possibly dead bodies, and all sorts of creatures from the bayous around us. That toxic stew is now festering around us. These buildings behind me have only maybe 2 feet of water. Many of the homes in this city have 10, 15, 20 feet of water.
Last night, Jeffrey, you talked about the beginnings of the looting that was taking place. I mean, first of all, is there anything left to loot, and are people still looting, and is there nothing that can be done about it? Are the police totally helpless here?
The things that I witnessed today, Ted, I will never forget. Looting on a scale that was just so staggering, so overwhelming. It was open season. What we discovered is, and what we've seen today, is that while a lot of people evacuated in the city, thousands, tens of thousands did not, and they are here. The city has been ravaged by the hurricane, and now it's being ravaged by some of its citizens.
One last question, and I guess I've been avoiding this. New Orleans has a mythic quality in the American imagination. Is it over for that city?
I don't know that I feel qualified to answer that, Ted, but I certainly did ask myself that question today as we explored the city and tried to gather information today, watching this city that does have that mythic quality. You know, everything that it has been is now underwater and undermined by Hurricane Katrina.
Jeffrey Kaufman, thanks very much indeed. There is late word tonight from Louisiana State Police that a New Orleans police officer was shot by a looter. The police officer's condition is not known. Correspondent David Muir spent the day on the streets with the people who were desperately trying to escape all of that rising water.
With water already up to his shoulders, this man slowly makes his way to an on-ramp to Interstate 10, the only escape from the rising waters in this New Orleans neighborhood. That on-ramp now serves as a boat dock for rescuers who are plucking residents one by one from second-story windows, attics, and rooftops, carrying children and the elderly to safety.
I have gone through Bessie, I have gone through near misses, and I just didn't take it seriously.
Rescuers say many of the people did not have the means to get out.
A lot of them didn't leave because they didn't have a way to leave.
And many of the residents here thought they were in the clear, that Katrina had come and gone, only to watch the water rise 24 hours later.
Emergency authorities are now driving through the city where they're picking up families in boats. They're then putting them in pickups like this one and driving them to the Superdome.
But that will be a temporary fix. The Superdome is also surrounded by several feet of water, and the governor's office recognizes the more than 10,000 evacuees already inside will have to be moved.
It's not a very comfortable situation right now. You can imagine there's no power. It's hot. You know, difficult to get food to them.
Lionel Hunter is already on the move. He showed us the back of his pickup filled with supplies and his entire family.
I've been praying all night, and thank God that God is guiding us to safety.
There have been a lot of prayers for help here from families who didn't know if anyone would come to get them out.
I'll never stay home again. No, this was terrible. This was really terrible.
And with the water still rising, it's about to get worse. I'm David Muir for Nightline in New Orleans.
Two extraordinary aerial pictures tonight. There were rumors this evening of a prison break underway amid the lawlessness of post-Katrina New Orleans. The rumors spoke of hostages, even children. Not hard to believe given the breakdown of anything resembling normal day-to-day life in that city, but it appears that's all they were, rumors. A prison was evacuated, as you can see in these pictures. These men were taken to higher ground on what remains of a highway overpass late this afternoon, along with various other New Orleans residents, including some children, who sought refuge there. Then this. The intricate highway network that knits this community together over bayous, rivers, and the great expanse of Lake Pontchartrain has been quite simply destroyed. For miles and miles, this highway, Highway I-10, is gone. When we come back, we'll be joined by the cameraman who shot the remarkable aerial pictures you just saw. Late today, he was also over the coast of Mississippi, where the devastation is even more striking. Back in a moment.
This is ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by MasterCard.
Red scarf in Pamplona, 10 euros. Bike tour through the wine country of Bordeaux, 200 euros. Gelato in Rome, 3 euros. Opera tickets in Vienna, 120 euros. Getting off the beaten path, priceless. There are some things money can't buy. For your travel, there's MasterCard.
The fury of Katrina. So many lives lost. So many lives forever shattered. So many now at risk. Tomorrow night at 10/9 Central from the powerful resources of ABC News. A must-see one-hour special, In the Path of Katrina.
Both Local 10 and United Way are about people, and specifically our South Florida community.
Lori Jennings, Local 10 News.
She knows this community. She knows what makes people tick.
If we're not out there and actively involved in the community, we're just reporting the same basic news everyone else is.
When you see that smile light up on Local 10, it's not acting. That's the real Lori Jennings.
She is Local 10, and she is South Florida.
We love you, Lori!
Gray hair and a beard is pugnacious.
In other words, gray hair stinks.
Just for men, swishes and dishes gray.
Gray is gone.
It's simplistic and naturalistic.
Easy.
And Claude looks splendiferous.
Just for men gel, the Rejuvenator.
Every child deserves to be raised in a loving home. That's why we're so proud to announce the Magnum's Force Adoption Project, sponsored by the Children's Trust of Miami-Dade County. Watch Local 10 News to find out how you can be part of it, because all children are our children.
Only tonight is the scope of the devastation along the Gulf Coast of Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama becoming a little clearer. Over 100 deaths are estimated in the Biloxi Gulfport area alone. We're joined tonight again by J.T. Alpor, the cameraman whose astonishing video we showed you last night, and we're going to show you again tonight. J.T., walk us through some of the scenes that we are seeing now as you overflew the coast, I guess particularly of Mississippi.
It was absolute complete devastation. We could not actually recognize how the damage was caused, but it appeared to be caused by an extremely strong storm surge that pressed barges into homes and just flattened them. It was an unbelievable sight and absolutely breathtaking, and words can't begin to describe what we saw in this area.
Some of these gigantic boxes that we see on the beach, or they look like boxes, what are those, JT?
Well, there were very large cargo containers, what looked like shipping containers that we saw, and we can only guess that those came off barges that were moored in the Gulfport area. We saw an immense amount of very large brown paper rolls that seemed to have bowled through that area, just plowing through houses, and it was very hard to see the streets from all the debris, and there was very little left at the homes to recognize.
There was one very tender little scene on the beach. I don't know if you remember it, of a family down there. Can you recall what I'm talking about?
Yes, we were flying up the beach towards Biloxi, and we saw a family and just sitting on debris and furniture that had been strewn across the beach, and their heads in their hands. It becomes very real, and the disaster is just tremendous. I'm
going to say two words. I think you'll know what I mean. Ghost ship.
We think it was a casino barge, and it had looked to me almost like a pirate ship had been wrecked into the barge of the Biloxi area, and it was a very, very ominous and kind of an eerie-looking shipwreck. And we weren't quite sure what to make out of that, but it was, again, just one of the many strange sights.
JT, we're going to come back to you a little bit later and talk about some of the extraordinary aerial rescues that you witnessed and recorded again today. But first, Nightline correspondent Chris Bury has been following what you saw from the air on the ground.
The devastation here is so immense, the scope of it so extensive, that we decided to focus on one street, St. Charles Avenue. It's a street of mostly modest homes that runs right into the Gulf of Mexico, and after Katrina, every home on St. Charles Avenue offers its own compelling story. 19-year-old Landon Williams lived with his grandmother in the quiet water beach apartments. But the hurricane's ferocious wall of water smashed every one of the 16 buildings here to a pile of rubble. To say it looks like a war zone is one of those hurricane cliches that happens in this case to be true.
About 7 in the morning, it flooded real bad. It flooded so bad that it knocked in the door.
But somehow Landon Williams survived.
We had to bust out a window to go into the second story, and we moved about 6 people in there to get to higher level ground so we wouldn't drown.
In water 15 to 20 feet deep, Landon, helping his grandmother, says he swam to the nearest building still standing, to 129 Charles Avenue, the home of William Harper.
They stayed in this closet, which obviously was dry. They pulled clothes out of the closet, threw them in there, and got on them, which is fine. You know, hopefully it kept them dry, and hopefully it saved them. And we just waited out the storm.
Did you get any help from emergency officials at all?
No, sir. Basically, it was just fight for your life and for yourself.
One door down at 131 St. Charles, postal carrier Dick Bass, a decorated Vietnam veteran, also stayed and swore, at least to us, that he was not scared.
Water was coming up through the floor, and I heard a big creak, and I said the house is getting ready to shift. So I opened the doors. I think I saved my house. I opened the doors and let all the flood water come in, and the house settled back down.
But his neighbor at the end of the block, Bonnie Lambert, who works at a nearby casino, told us she now regrets riding out Katrina in her old bungalow.
All of my wonderful neighbors that lived here in Camille told me the water didn't come up past that big oak tree down there on the next block, and I believed them. I won't believe them again. I will leave, I promise, the next time.
They, of course, are the fortunate ones. Late today, rescue officials worried bodies might be buried under the rubble near the St. Charles condominium complex. Before Katrina, twin 3-story buildings. Now, only the one on the left still stands. The one on the right simply disappeared in the storm. This evening, the fire department's search and rescue team was brought in to check out a report, still not confirmed, of several bodies trapped in the debris.
We're using them to our advantage. We're going into pockets that have not been searched yet.
Is that your iron skillet?
Throughout the day along St. Charles Avenue, the evacuees came trickling back, combing through the splinters for what mattered to them. For Randy and Carol Broussard, it was a childhood collection.
Porcelain set of carousel horses and different kinds of little porcelain horses that was actually put in this trunk before we left.
She's been collecting them since a child.
But Barbara Zollicoffer could find nothing of value, only a few tools and kitchen plates. So what did you lose?
Freezer full of food, all my clothes, all my jewelry, what little change I had left in the house. Lost a cat in it. Just everything we had.
Chelina Ladd, a 21-year-old waitress just starting out in life, lost everything she had, but gained a valuable lesson along the way.
How stupid you are sinks in, you know, when I'm worried about grabbing my TV and my DVD player, and now the only thing I want is my pictures, and they're all gone. I can't find them.
Tonight, St. Charles Avenue is deserted except for a few of its hardiest souls roughing it without running water, working toilets, or electricity. Now imagine the misery on this single block, magnified in hundreds of similar places across the Mississippi Gulf Coast, and the enormity of this disaster begins to sink in. This is Chris Bury for Nightline in Biloxi, Mississippi.
When we come back, more from our correspondents along the Gulf Coast where Katrina hit hardest.